As Lena banked, she arced and spun her 25mm cannon. Two guys with rocket launchers and two trucks full of militants offloading disappeared into red mist and dust. She landed and popped her cockpit. Lena pulled an AK-74 from under her seat and started cranking off rounds. Without a word, the prior pin soldier broke cover and ran. Lena emptied her mag to keep the remaining enemy suppressed as she partially enjoyed the cover of a temporary sandstorm. Circle, she made with her jet engine. Lena didn't have time to look at him as she grabbed her only spare mag and resumed fire as he clambered in. Lena felt the tap-tap nudging the back of her seat and sent her jet straight up as the cockpit closed, small arms fire bouncing off her Harrier's thick armor. Suddenly her system warned her of an incoming rocket, and she rocked her controls to the left as the rocket missed a wing by inches. She heard a body tumble in the back, and she giggled. The engine roared as she ordered the jet forward with her controls, another rocket missing the fuselage by seconds. As Lena flew off with her rescue, 4 A-10s roared by like flying Harleys. She teared up and threw them a salute, and all 4 saluted back. Reality finally caught up with her counterparts. As her counterparts began clearing to the sounds of brrr, her new temporary co-pilot finally got adjusted, buckled in, and they talked the whole way back to base. And there they were under the tree. She was on administrative leave while they reviewed yet another incident revolving around her. Lena got to escort him back to his home base and then do whatever she wanted to while they reviewed the situation. As long as she could be back to base in time, she pretty much had free reign and didn't want to be anywhere else. For the first time in her life, since being away from her parents, she felt truly safe and loved. They snuggled together tighter as she glanced over at him. He was cute but had a lethal intensity about him. That longing in his eyes to live in the face of death that was so familiar once before. She reminded him of somebody, if that somebody had grown up in different circumstances. He saw distant pain in her eyes and asked her what was wrong. She threatened to stab his eye with a pencil. They rolled around in the dark and snuck back into the tent later before it started to drizzle. The dream seemed to fast forward again. Lena had been able to hide the baby pretty well. She'd kept spare urine on standby to make tests easier and was able to stretch it for a while. Flying in a jet probably hadn't been good for developing babies, but Lena did it anyway as long as she thought it was safe. Lena feared further reprisals from the fan club that she made in case they'd found out. It wasn't long before her routine required medical inspections detected the pregnancy around the same time her flight suit was starting to have a cute little baby bump. Command immediately moved her off base to have the baby, and she had it in safety as was protocol of someone at her level. Nobody could know there was potential leverage over their ace pilot. Several examples had been found in the fob of bounty posters for her already, and some of them had started making it onto her base specifically. A few excuses here and there of some fake disciplinary action to throw off anyone paying attention, and she spent those few precious months hidden in secrecy with her baby. More strings were pulled due to the man she had saved, and he was able to take time raising her as well. The baby bounced back and forth between missions, getting exposed to all manner of special military tech, hardware, and going fast. Now she was a few years old, somewhere between 4 and 5, and Mommy was in trouble with the CO again. Little Reagan, Daddy got to name her, wanted Mommy to stay. Something felt wrong this time. "I have to go, sweetie," Lena pleaded with Reagan and gave her a kiss on the forehead, as she had so many times before when she had to go. You know what to do if anything happens, sweetie, right?" Little Reagan nodded. She had her little toy motorcycle in one hand and a jet toy in the other. She was fully dressed in child-sized motorcycle gear, armored head to toe, when most girls her age were sporting ballerina garb. She was pretending she was driving around on the motorcycle, while her mommy flew overhead. Lena tried to keep her attention, seeing that she was trying to will the situation into not being true. I just have to talk to the CEO, okay? I'll be back. Then we'll go to the BX and pick you out a new toy. Reagan nodded and was able to spot a lie, knowing something was wrong. She kept it to herself, though. Reagan knew if she worried Mommy, it would compromise her concentration and she would be at risk. Lena kissed her on the head again. You're my smart little girl. I love you so much. I love you too, Mommy. Lena took off her wristband she had and snapped it onto Reagan's. This will keep you safe. Reagan nodded and nothing more needed to be said. Then Lena went back in the CO's office. There was paperwork she was supposed to sign to take the promotion. Full ride, college for the kid, the whole 9 yards, but never able to fly in combat again. She sneered. She wanted to leave under her own conditions or not at all. Lena had her pen out thinking she was going to be able to sign another corrective action. It sat on the table between the two in case she needed to grab it and stab him in the neck. You never know. Her pen, that is. Then the alarms were going off. The Russians, Syrians, Turks, and Americans had been fighting over this land for years now. Israel had gotten pissed and cleared out several miles worth of city out on their side. Jordan wouldn't have anything to do with it. Nobody was in a hurry to mess with the Allied Kurds, and countless missions off the books between the Russians and the Americans over Syrian airspace, while the Kurds kept the Turks back. Now their base was under imminent attack by who knows what. At least that's what the alarms meant. This isn't over, the CO said at her, glaring. No kidding. This is my last mission. If we survive this, I'm out. She grabbed her pen off the table and ran. A blast blew out the windows as she ran out of the office, paperwork blowing everywhere. One revealed underneath the details of her baby. As she ran out to her jet and hopped in the cockpit, she turned around to see the office and only seconds before engulfed in a blaze. Other jets were already on fire as jihadis crested the base, shooting small arms fire onto the airfield. She closed her cockpit as other pilots were getting killed trying to get into their jets. Lena turned her jet on and spun up her 25mm to get their heads down as the huge machine powered up. She tried to buy someone, anyone, time to get in their jet to help. Seconds felt like hours, and she full-throttled her AV-8 to get airborne as her systems detected more jets in the distance. In the air, everything felt small and in slow motion, her systems alerting her to multiple factions closing in from every angle. She heard an all-call come in for anyone within range that could assist. A thick Kurdish accent responded within a few moments as she lit up many small vehicles, even taking out 2 military surplus tanks. She spun and dodged as missiles and anti-aircraft missiles flew by. They seemed so slow to her, but she knew that being the only bird in the air, she was dodging their entire arsenal. Thankfully, moments later, an A-10 finally got its slow butt in the air and began a thorough burning of the bad guys. There were too many for the 2 jets, though, and the base was overran. If the jihadis got their hands on Stingers, she and the other A-10 would be toast. The A-10 saw it about the same time as her, and they began strafing the area. This caused the enemy to focus, trying to get to the arsenal as a tiny holdout trying to protect it. On the other side of the base, a little armor-clad motorcycle rider exited the barracks in the opposite direction, in her 40cc gas motorcycle. She gave it all the gas she could, trying to get away in the only direction there was no enemy. The armor was in subdued camo, and with the commotion going on, nobody could hear the engine. She drove and never looked back. Lena had picked the whole thing up on her HUD and wiped tears from her eyes, knowing she would never see her little Reagan again. She spun her jet around and broke off in the other direction to draw them away. The A-10 saw and gave her a thumbs up, taking off in his own direction from her lead. She heard more chatter in what sounded like Russian and got a mile or two away, when her jet suddenly malfunctioned out of nowhere. She grabbed her AK-74, slung it, and the canopy blew. Lena was automatically launched straight into the sky as her AV-8 suddenly exploded beneath her a second later for no reason. She passed out. Yelling. There was lots of yelling. Black-clad, masked men in camo were drawn by the wreckage. She stirred, trying to will herself awake. She knew this was bad. Muscle memory kicked in before she was fully aware and kicked herself loose of her chair and attached a parachute. Lena stumbled forward, only to catch the burning branches, burning her hand.